If something was to occur, what are the steps in preparation that we need to take now to make sure we can face? Things are going to happen, and you're going to need to know how you are prepared, where the paperwork is, what your policy reads, etc., especially if you are going to pick up your own health insurance, leaving your employer because you want to retire early before age 65. What do we learn from real life that spreadsheets are never going to show us? I have learned more about healthcare in this stage of life that I'm beginning to consider and ultimately will enter than any spreadsheet or any article or any YouTube video is ever going to teach me. A lot of it is real, some of it is myth, and some of it was fear-based on my perception of what my loved one was going through. We've all watched our parents age, our grandparents age, the different health situations that come up, the fallout from that, regardless if it's health-related fallout, their stress, their fear, their lack of understanding of what's happening in their life. And by lack of understanding, I don't mean because they're mentally diminished. I mean because they did not fully understand what the process was, that they needed to get some sort of pre-approval before they showed up at this doctor's appointment for X, Y, and Z. They were not their own advocate. They sat back. I don't know when that generation was taught that you just deferred to the medical authority and just nodded and smiled. That is where I say no, no. I will be fully informed. I will act and not react. I will be prepared to face whatever comes health-wise or medical establishment process bureaucracy-wise, not just for myself, but for my husband and anyone else in my life that I love and care about, that I need to be the advocate, their own personal social worker. Because, you know, when you get to the hospital these days, they introduce you to your social worker. And a lot of us, me especially, is like, what? Social worker? But it's basically your liaison, your cruise director for the health establishment for your particular situation that you're there. But with that said, it is up to you to educate you. And there's things we need to continue talking about. I'm a planner. I'm a list maker. I'm a spreadsheet user. Y'all know this about me. If you've watched one, even half of one of my videos, you know that Jenny, she's got a list and she's ticking things off, and I do. But we can't plan for everything. All we can do is educate ourselves, ask the right questions, be prepared as much as possible, but life is going to happen. Those curveballs, they're coming. They are coming, and they're coming for you. It is going to rain. We have rainy day emergency funds because of that. We also need to know that when it comes to our health, that we need to be proactive and not reactive. So let's talk about that for a minute. We're all aging. It's just a natural course of being human. We've all made stupid or less than perfect decisions, and I'm pointing to my past me, that we will pay the piper for because, yeah, those 60 bazillion brain cells they said we were going to kill if we kept drinking that beer. Well, we kind of need those now. They're gone. When we were young and immortal, it didn't matter. It matters now. But you have to be prepared regardless of what events happen. It can just be run-of-the-mill, every 6-month checkups with your doctor, annual checkups. We ladies, we've got annual things that we have to do. And good news is, the more we age, the further down the road we get. Some of those things are no longer annual. They're like every 3 years or 5 years. Depends on your personal situation and you and your doctor. But you have to be able to, you just have to accept things are going to happen, and you're going to need to know how you are prepared, where the paperwork is, what your policy reads, etc., especially if you are going to pick up your own health insurance, leaving your employer because you want to retire early before age 65, you got to fully understand. Don't just leave it in the hand of some nameless, faceless broker on the phone because this was the best price and they say it fits what you need. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're calling 911 or you're showing up at the emergency room, you're not going to be able to get them on the phone and ask them questions. You need to know these things for yourself. We have always prepared for certain events, and this should be no different. When a hurricane is arriving in the South, on the Gulf Coast, we all know that when a hurricane's arriving, you've got your emergency preparedness kit. You make sure that thing's stocked before it happens. For those of you who had children, you had your bug out bag. When you needed to go to the hospital, there was a plan. You put it into writing. You practiced it. You discussed it with those amongst you, etc. This should be no different because these things are going to happen. And we've got so much longer ahead of us than those moments in time we did such great preparedness for. So let's start thinking now. If something was to occur, what are the steps in preparation that we need to take now to make sure we can face it? And the very first one is know your policy. Know what your options are when there is a medical emergency. Not all emergency rooms or emergency med clinics are created equally when it comes to your policy. You need to know ahead of time where your go-to facility is so that you're taken there and not somewhere else. In my mother's case, my mother and her husband, when they relocated from Alabama to Texas for those last 7 or 8 years, they did not fully educate themselves. They did not change their insurance policies from Alabama to Texas. So when they first relocated here, they're still under an Alabama policy. So now anything that happened in Texas is considered out of state. And they had no clue. It wasn't until there was an event and the co-pays and everything were just so astronomical and surprising to them that they finally realized, I think somebody at the hospital may have told them that, no, you're still under the Alabama policy and this is the prices for your out of state or your travel or whatever that rider was. Because you need to look in that too. Because when you buy your insurance policy, it might be state specific and anything outside of the state could be a different price tier, etc. So for those of us who travel, that's a point to consider as well. If you're thinking of relocating, that needs to be part of your changing of the utilities and cable and internet and all of that. Look at your health insurance. Don't just make assumptions that it's going to follow you organically because it will be a rude, expensive awakening. Now, for those of us who are thinking about retiring early, before age 65, some of us may be going from employer-sponsored health plans into COBRA. If not COBRA, then you're shopping and you'll be prepared to pick up your health policy either off the exchange or from a private provider, etc. But you need to make sure there's not gaps of missing time that you have to wait and delay before the coverage of the new policy kicks in. That could be an issue for you. You want to make sure that everything is fully covered. When you're leaving the previous policy, go ahead and make sure that you have done your due diligence, that you have taken care of all of your upcoming doctor appointments that may need to happen sooner than later, that you've already met your deductible or you're close to meeting your deductible in your previous policy. Go ahead and take advantage of that so that when you get transitioned over to your new private pay policy, whether it's on the exchange or you've picked up a independent policy for health coverage, then you are working with a clean slate. You know that you're up to date on all your annuals, you're up to date on all your prescriptions, etc., and everything can just transition smoothly. There are benefits to timing your departure on your insurance policies in existence, the calendar year, and when you're picking something up. it might make sense to delay your exit until an insurance period rolls over, so that in my case, my husband and I, we've met our deductible. This is only May. So not that I'm planning to leave before the end of the year, but it would not behoove me to leave and pick up a new insurance policy before the end of the year when I've already met my deductible. I choose, or it's prudent to choose, to go ahead and write out the calendar year. If you were picking up COBRA from your existing employer, well then that would, your deductible, that policy is the policy that you would continue on with. So your year is still covered with the deductible. But you need to know these things before you make a leap. It's all part of keeping yourself proactively informed so you can make decisions, that you can act and not react in critical situations. When we're not prepared, fear kicks in. We make knee-jerk decisions, emotionally based decisions, instead of logically based decisions. And that can be expensive as well. You need to know specifically that same list of facts and details, but not necessarily prescriptions. You need to know what is in-state, out-of-state, what is emergency care versus urgent care, what is the co-pays, what is the deductibles. These things can shift and not be near as clear as your assumptions are. So ask a lot of stupid questions. And by stupid questions, because there are no stupid questions, but sit there like you've never heard of healthcare coverage before. That a deductible, a copay, what are these things? Have whoever is selling you this insurance walk you through it. You want, and take notes. Take notes, because that person, once that policy is sold, may not be available when you need to ask additional questions. And the very pleasant ladies or gentlemen who are checking you into these emergency places, they're not going to know either. They can call a number on the back of your card and ask the medical lingo questions, but your peace of mind is you knowing. So take lessons from what we've witnessed from our parents and our grandparents when they had to make the midnight dash somewhere. What can you do differently now? If something was to occur, what are the steps in preparation that we need to take now? You need to have a plan in place. And that plan for this conversation is, what kind of insurance coverage do you have? Where are your insurance cards? Where's Pawpaw's medication list? Do you know where to take him? Who's going to take your insurance? Things that you need to know. You have to be prepared. When you know what your options are and where you should geographically, physically go for medical attention at 2 o'clock in the morning, if by chance you get there and there's a problem and somebody is not bleeding or dying, and they want you to pay a $600 copay for this particular emergency room visit, but that's not what you were expecting, you now know that 3 blocks down the road is the next one that you're available to go to. You can go there instead. Now, if somebody is in a critical situation, you're not going to haggle. You want them to get attention. And everything that we have witnessed our parents and our grandparents go through are lessons that we can do better with now. I know from my dad's experiences, his choices of retiring without any insurance. And so there was 6 or 7 years that he did go to doctors and things, but he was very minimalistic with the amount of prescriptions he would get filled because he didn't have the coverage to pay for them. He paid the price for those decisions as he continued to age, because those medications could have prevented complications in the next 15, 20 years. So these are lessons that we all get to learn. And so for me personally, I will make sure that I keep healthcare coverage. I will make sure that I am on medications or prescribed medications that I can afford. Matter of fact, those lessons with my dad, I've been applying for the last 20 years. As a contractor, you've heard me say in other videos, I would go to a doctor, they would try to put me on the latest and the greatest just out medicine for X, Y, and Z, and it was no thank you, I can't afford that if I didn't have health insurance. Well, your copay, it doesn't matter. I need prescriptions, whether they're generic or not, that if I had no insurance, I could walk into my local pharmacy and get them filled and be able to afford them at a cash price. Be your own best advocate. Learn your lessons. Do what's best for you and your family, but you have got to know these things before an emergency happens. All right, I'm Jenny. I post on, when do I post? I post on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I've got a little to say about a lot of stuff. I do. And all of it this week has had to do with healthcare as we move into this next stage of life. Share this video with somebody in your life that needs to hear this information. Somebody who is thinking about retiring before age 65. All of this is applicable after age 65. It's just a different kettle of fish when it comes to Medicare versus the markets that we have to shop for insurance now. Also, these lessons, apply them to your existing life. If you're in your 40s and you've got employer-sponsored health care, great. You still need all of this information for those policies. And for those situations, you need to be prepared before the bottom falls out in your next emergency. All right, so pass this video along, like, share, comment, keep coming back. I'll see y'all soon. Stop recording. A lot of the choices that you made will come home to roost now. I personally am experiencing that. I am not going into that without kicking and screaming. I started 13, 15 years ago making better choices to stop what I was doing, but then also put myself on the path to better health. And I am grateful every doctor's appointment that I go to that I stopped what I was doing back in the day. And for me, it was 2-pack a day smoking. You've got your own demons and devils, whatever you didn't stop or you did stop or you need to stop now. You can impact your future health by the choices you make now, but this is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the cost involved in managing those poor decisions. So there are things that you can do now to proactively improve your situation that cost you nothing. All right. If you are, no, let's not even get into that. I am not here to coach you through your physical transformation or your daily habits on what you can do, but there's lots that you can be doing, and there's simple, easy things to do. I'm certain I have a video in me about that because it's pretty amazing the impact they have on you. Fresh batteries, water, exit plan, etc., backup power supplies, etc., whatever you need. When they say that you're going to be hit, that's when you start looking at your non-perishable food products, which you may need to churn and restock and get a loaf of bread and some peanut butter, etc. But you prepare. They didn't change their insurance policy. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. In that the coverage that you're picking up seamlessly allows you to move into it without any gaps between one insurance to the other. Sometimes there is a period of time that they want to ensure that, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Okay. So, because when we're not prepared, we're afraid. It is fearful. You may not even make the best health decisions when you're not prepared, when you don't know what somebody wants or what their allergies are, the full prescription list. So just like when there's a hurricane or you're heading to the hospital for a baby, etc., you've got your list written down in an app somewhere where when they check you in, you know that these are your prescriptions, these are your supplements, or your spouse's, or your child, etc. Healthcare coverage, no different, because Pawpaw may have been having some heart palpitations or his arm went numb and he was having difficulty breathing, whatever. If you could go back in time and I didn't have a I did have a pawpaw. Yeah, bless his heart. I never had a meemaw though, but let's use pawpaw and meemaw as the examples here to make sure we can face on the morning on May 12th in whatever year, 1945, there's going to be a problem. And when you know what your options are for coverage, and not so much for coverage, but if somebody has cut their finger at the barbecue and you need to get your husband stitched up because he was doing the flippy things with the spatulas and the burgers, and all of a sudden it went sideways. If it's that type of situation, you got it wrapped up and compressed and you can drive him down to the next facility, do it. Do it. You don't have to take, in a crisis situation, what they're trying to force you to pay. And I know a lot of you are thinking, Jen, this is kind of, I am not, oh, this is so wrong. So I believe everything in life happens for a reason. There are lessons that we learn along the way that build into a giant gift of information for us.